How you doing, and welcome to my channel. As you can see today, I'm having a look at the T-800 battle damaged 2.0 by Hot Toys DX46. Just having a quick look at the box there. You can see it's very like the T-1000 2.0 box with the red filter over it and the reflective Terminator 2 Judgment Day text on it. On the side we have the T-800 battle damage version, 1/6 scale, the X46, and then on the back the usual warnings and information about Hot Toys. And if I pull the slip out here, and when I do that, I'll ask you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Really helps out the channel. And on the inside on this card, a really nice piece of art on it there, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't showcase both head sculpts on this one. They actually just put the most battle damaged one on it, which is an odd choice. I thought they would have showcased both, but there we have it for the box. So moving on, let's give them a quick pan before we move on to the details. So here we are for the battle damage T-800. Just a quick pan of it before we get into the details and some facts. It took 170 days to shoot the movie on a budget of 94 million, making it the most expensive movie of its time. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a total of 700 words of dialogue in the movie for a paycheck of $15 million, which makes it about $21,500 per word. That's quite a hefty paycheck per word. 5 hours to apply the makeup on Arnold Schwarzenegger's face for these end scenes, and 1 hour to remove. And as a lot of us know, Lance Henriksen was originally cast as the T-800, but did you know that O.J. Simpson was seriously considered for the role as the T-800 for the first movie? And James Cameron actually deemed it that O.J. Simpson was too much of a nice guy to play the villain, the T-800, which is quite ironic given what happened only a few years later. And the scene that where Arnold Schwarzenegger jumps from the vehicle that they hijack on the highway onto the tanker truck, where he shoots the T-1000 point blank in the face with the AR-15, that scene was filmed with no wires and no safety nets. Arnold Schwarzenegger jumped off that car, kind of flatbed truck, onto the truck and fires that AR-15 without any aid, without any wires. And James Cameron said in retrospect that he would never ever do anything like that again. It was way too dangerous. So look, there's lots and lots of facts about this movie. That's just a handful of them, so moving on. And here we are for all of the accessories and attachments that come with the T-800 battle damage. So I'm just going to start off with these head sculpts because my camera keeps trying to focus on them. We have the slightly damaged battle damage head sculpt. This is more in theme with when he's exiting the Cyberdyne Systems building and he gets ambushed by the SWAT team and he takes quite a lot of rounds to the face. The battle damage just begins in that scene. He hasn't got any battle damage up until that point. We'll get into more detail about this head sculpt when we get into the head sculpt section, and the same with this head sculpt here. We have the severely battle damaged head sculpt from the end of the movie in the steel mill or the refinery, whichever way you want to put it. Quite a lot of detail in it there. We'll get into more detail with it a bit later on. We do have this section here that takes batteries. This little socket there, this neck peg. And unfortunately it is batteries, and there's a little LED light that pushes up into the head sculpt and lines up with the eye and illuminates the eye. And if I'm not mistaken, Present Toys were the first people to do this kind of style. If I'm not mistaken, somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but the first time I seen this style of neck peg for illuminating the eye in the T-800 was from Present Toys. It eliminates the back plate on the back of the head, so which is nice touch. But I'm pretty sure Hot Toys have stolen that idea from Present Toys, but I could be mistaken. And then we have his severed arm from when he gets his arm cut up in some machinery when he's fighting the T-1000 and he has to rip his arm off. It is fully sculpted plastic, it's not silicone. Very decent blood and gore effect on the severed flesh parts of it. Some quite wet looking glossy effect blood. The endoskeleton blood parts are very bloody. which is the blood is a lot more severe than the DX13, which we'll have a look at a bit later on. And these parts here are soft plastic. Now they're the same on the DX13, they're a soft plastic, but they're not as soft. They're even softer again on this one, so that if you snag them on something, they're not going to snap and break. It's fantastic of Hot Toys to make them out of soft plastic, and you can see there's more detail of the severed endoskeleton parts on the inside there, which is absolutely fantastic. No moving parts, doesn't move. The size of the arms are quite accurate, quite in proportion to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time. Then we have his hands, and he has 8 hands in total. He has his relaxed palms, his trigger hands, his closed fists, his iconic thumbs up. And this hand here, which I haven't quite figured out what it's all about, has a little opening there on the inside for gripping something, a knife or something, because there's no accessories there that he could hold with that little gap there. So I'm still trying to work out what that hand is for. And the hands are identical to the DX13. They're all reused molds basically. Well, we'll get into that a bit later on, but the gore and the endoskeleton parts and the blood effects are way updated, way better than the DX13. Again, I'll show you a comparison a bit later on, but looks really nice, the blood effect on it and all. And as I said, remolds, reuse of the older ones. And then we have his bandolier for his M40 grenade launcher, or his grenade rounds. 12 in total, 12 grenades in total. This is fully nylon, this bandolier. Some movie accurate bullet holes through it there, as you can see, which it should have. Some more holes on this side here from taking what looks like 9mm rounds. And it does just want to curl up the whole time. It just wants to curl up. You can see me struggling with it there. It just wants to curl up. I'm not sure how that's going to sit on the figure. I haven't put it on the figure yet. I'll have to have a look a bit later on and see how it looks on the figure. Just taking out one of the grenades there. Very nicely detailed in the sense that there is some weathering on them and some wash put through them, just to make them look a bit used and beat up. And there is this silver band going around them, which is on point and all looks the part. And the buckles on it there are plastic, aren't they? Yeah, they're plastic. Yep, so moving on, we will have a look at his... It's kind of an M1911 style pistol, because I say that because this was custom made for the movie with a Cold Series 70 slide on it, a Detonics frame with different grips on it, modified grips on it. I can't think of the name of the grips that were on it. The name escapes me at the moment. And in the movie, it was modified to have an ambidextrous safety on it, although this mold doesn't have the ambi safety on it. But in the movie, as far as I remember, it had an ambidextrous safety on it. Unfortunately, didn't add it to this mold here for the Hot Toys figure. You can see there that it does have a functioning slide, a functioning hammer, and a removable magazine, like pretty much like all Hot Toys and 6-scale figure pistols. Unfortunately, there's no weathering or wash put through it there, or dry brush, or I think there should be a little bit. I think when he first takes the weapon from the guy in the bar, it is pretty clean, but I'm pretty sure throughout the movie it gets a bit weathered and scuffed. So I would have liked to have seen a bit of weathering on it. Then we have his M79 grenade launcher that fires his 40mm rounds. Very nicely detailed. This is a massive upgrade to the DX13. The detail in the broken part of it there, with the wash in it to highlight the grain and the damage to it, looks really good. And the wood effect on the grip and on the handle of it is much better than the DX13. And obviously you can see that it opens there as well. It does fold open, and I'm pretty sure you can slide a 40mm grenade in there. Let's give that a try. Let's see if we can put a 40mm in there without it popping out at the end. And there we go. If I can get the focus, there we go. And yeah, it stays in. It doesn't just slide out the end of it. Yeah, that's nice. I thought it was just going. I thought there was a possibility it was going to slide out the other end, but yeah, you can actually load a 40 mil into it if you so choose, which is a nice little detail there. In order to close that, you've got to slide the latch closed on it there, and it does have a rangefinder on it as well, as it should have, and it's functioning. Obviously, it's moving. And then we have the sling on it as well, which looks very new. I would have liked to have seen that a bit weathered and a bit worn looking, but we can't have everything. Then moving on to the Colt AR-15 Sport or Carbine with an XM177 flash hider on it. Now, this weapon changes throughout the movie depending on the scene. In the desert scene, it's dressed up to look like a Colt Model 629, and then when she's at Miles Bennett Dyson's house to assassinate him, it changes to a Model 653 with the 16-inch barrel. You can see that when she's putting the suppressor on, so it does change out throughout the scene, throughout the movie. But when Arnie has it in his hand, this is accurate to when Arnie has it when he shoots the T-800 on the truck and that. So this is accurate to the Colt AR-15 Sport or Carbine that Arnie uses at the end. You can see it has a retractable stock, dust cover works, and we do have a very tight but removable magazine with full capacity with 5.56 rounds in it, so it's full to the top. Looks the part. I would have liked again to see a little bit more weathering on it. There is some markings on it. It says Stoner rifle on it there, like Eugene Stoner, which I find interesting because I'm pretty sure it was a Colt that they were using in the movie. So I'm gonna say that that's wrong. I'm gonna say that that's wrong saying Stoner on it, and that they actually used the Colt in the movie AR-15 Sport or Carbine. So I think they've just printed the easiest sticker on it that they could. Maybe they don't have the license for Colt. I'm not sure. And then we have his Hawk MM1 grenade launcher, 40x46mm. Now it is firing CS gas grenades in the movie, but what they haven't added here in the movie, if you look closely, they added a hook stock. A hook stock from a Spaz 12, so that Arnie could hold the weapon in one hand, because this is a very heavy weapon and Arnie couldn't even hold it in one hand and stretch out and fire it. So they actually added if you look closely at the scene, you can see that there is a hook stock from a Spaz, so that Arnie could actually shoot it with one hand, and they haven't put it on to this here. I suppose they didn't have to, because it's not really seen in the movie, and it's not supposed to be seen in the movie. It's just the way it was for Arnie to hold it, and you can see that rotates. That part there does rotate. No rounds with it, and that is the only moving part, but it is nice that rotates, I suppose. Again, one lump of plastic, no weathering, no dry brushing. Not sure if it's necessary, to be honest. And as I said, the same with this here, no weathering or dry brushing through it, which I would have liked to have seen, or very minimum dry brushing. And then we have his two jackets. We have the full complete jacket with two sleeves that he wears right up until he gets his arm severed, and all the bullet holes through it there. And there is actually, I'm not sure if it's picking up on camera there, but there is actually blood seeping out of each bullet hole, which is an added bit of detail that the DX13 didn't have. Nice bit of detail, fully leather, as most people know, because this was a real selling point for this figure, to be actual genuine real leather, and it's scaled down really well. And we even have the bullet holes in the lining coming through the lining, which is a nice little touch. And on the back we have some more bullet holes, and there's a little bit of wear and weathering up in the collar area, and just slightly around different areas of it. And the way the belt loops hang down is all on point. Looks the part, looks great. And then we have his alternate jacket there for when he has the severed arm. So again, just like the DX13, we got two jackets, except these are full leather. All the same bullet holes too. They all look identical to me. Yeah. Other than the arm or the sleeve of it being ripped off, and some of the blood coming through. And like I said, there's more blood, and all of the bits of blood coming through the bullet holes, which is just a great little touch that we didn't get with the DX13. So there we are for all of his accessories and attachments that come with the T-800. Moving on, let's have a look at the figure itself. So here we are for the T-800 battle damage, pretty much straight up as he comes out of the box, with the exception of the head sculpt. I've changed over the head sculpt. I think the less damaged head sculpt is more fitting for when he has both arms. So starting off from bottom to top, we'll have a look at the details of his boots and we'll work our way up. And you can see that we have a fully sculpted boot there. It does finish up his thigh there, or his shin should I say. It just ends there where you can see that kind of lump or fold. So it does really restrict articulation, just like the DX13. Nicely sculpted buckle on them there, and you can see even the finer details of the stitching running through the boots is really well done. A little bit of scuffing on the heel there and the sole, and a little bit of dry brushing on the toe area there as well, which looks the part. And we do have a sculpted or a molded grip on the bottom as well, which looks the part, looks on point. Really nicely, finely detailed stitching running through them there, and they all are one plastic mold. My only gripe is the lack of articulation, but you can't have everything. Moving up to his trousers, again, the selling point for this figure is the fact that they are fully leather, 100% leather outfit, and it is definitely feels really soft and really smells like leather, and it's really nice on the figure. You can see that it does have a little bit of weathering on it there as well, which is very nicely done. The grain on them might be a little bit oversized, minimal oversizing in it, but it's not really noticeable. The stitching up them looks really well as well, and you can see that the zip is at the bottom and it is open. I think they were like that in the movie. The DX13 isn't like that though. And then around the back, they say a little bit odd because the material is so thin and very soft. Where the ripped leg, the fully intact legs, it's fine, but the tear, because of the tear in the material in the leg, they just sit a bit off. But it's not the end of the world. It is at the back. The pockets are stitched on okay. They're nothing fantastic. They might be just a little bit protrude just a little bit too much, not flush enough as they would be in real life, but they do the job and they are functioning. Moving around to the battle damaged leg, as I said, because the leather is so soft, and the DX13 was similar too, it's not the end of the world. It's a fairly decent compromise to have real leather that isn't going to deteriorate. And you can see that we have quite a lot of detail here on the damaged leg, and all of the flesh is all very gory looking. The blood runs up into, after the leg severs, some splatter, and that looks really nicely done. Nice glossy effect, wet glossy effect to the blood. And the endoskeleton part absolutely saturated in blood as well. And it does run down further than the tears in the leg. I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick up on that, but it does run down further. If I feel around there, I can kind of feel it runs, if I was to guess, it runs down as far as where the boot ends with, the battle damage runs right down the leg, which is nice. And around the back as well, it continues around the back as well. They haven't spared any details with the gore and the torn up flesh. It is a single joint. Because of the design of the endoskeleton part, they didn't want to put in a double joint, which would have taken away from the effect. And there is a nice silver look to or chrome-ish kind of look to it's plastic, but it's painted quite well to look like a metal. I'm really impressed with that gore and the tissue damage and the muscle damage, and Really, really well done. Very impressed with that. Really looks the part. Then we have his, what feels like a real leather belt. That feels like a real leather belt. Yeah, that's not gonna deteriorate either. The DX13 and the DX10. The DX10 was all fully leather as well, if my memory serves me correct. The DX10 outfit was fully leather. This isn't the first full real leather T-800 that we got, not by a long shot. The DX10 was fully real leather too, but the belt was pleather and did deteriorate, including myself. My belt and my DX10 deteriorated. Moving up to the jacket, one of the things I want to point out is the arms underneath there are silicone. They are actually silicone, and taking the jacket off and putting it on is a real pain in the neck because of the silicone, the sticky silicone. It is a real nuisance to get the jacket back on. I took it off, I swapped the jackets over a couple of times, and what happened while I was futzing and trying to get it up over the silicone arms, I actually lost one of the zips. Came off, the glue came off one of the zips. Kind of a flimsy glue. It's nothing that I'm not going to be able to fix. I am going to dab a bit of glue on it and refix it, but it is worth noting, and anybody who has the figure, be careful with those zips. If you futter them too much, it's a real nuisance to get the jacket up over those sticky silicone arms. But looking at the blood and gore on the damaged chest piece was really well done. Very different to the DX13. The t-shirt has this still attached part going across there. All of the details of the endoskeleton are far improved to the DX13. And the colour of the t-shirt as well is much lighter and much more movie accurate. My battery died on my phone. On my camera. I'm gonna have to start again. As I was saying, you can see the dried in blood, how it extends, past all the damage. I don't want to be pulling the t-shirt apart too much, but it feels like the battle damage does extend beyond the t-shirt and up into the chest area, which is really nicely done. Like I said, I don't want to stretch the t-shirt out too much because I do believe that attached part there is going to rip off if I futz with it too much. But again, you can see the detail of the bullet holes in the damage, and this section here with some flesh coming through with a couple of bullet holes in it, and there's some depth to it as well. There's quite a lot of depth to it there between the fleshy chest part and the endoskeleton. So it really does look the part, and it has a lot of relief to it and looks very realistic. So there we have it for the body of the T-800. Like I said, my only real gripe so far is the glue on the zips is very flimsy, and I did lose a zip while putting the jacket on over those very sticky silicone arms, and I'm still trying to figure out why they were silicone, to be honest with you, why they made them silicone. I do like the wear on the jacket. You can just see all the little subtle bits of wear in all the raised parts on the jacket, which looks on point, looks the part, and there are some rips throughout where you can see those silicone arms coming through. Really nicely done. So moving on, let's have a look at the second look for him, basically. So here we have the alternate look for him, which is the alternate jacket on, the severed arm coming out, and although it does look the part, you can't really get his arm in very close to the body, which probably is on point for the movie because he had his real arm in behind his back and it was kind of hanging out like that. As I said, he does have the silicone arms on, and this is one figure and one situation where I do not like the silicone arms. This figure is not going to have his arms exposed at any point. There's no scene in the movie where he has this much battle damage on him where he doesn't have the jacket on, and the silicone arms really hinder putting the jacket on. It must have took me 15 minutes to get this jacket on up over these sticky silicone arms. You can see how tight they are to the arm. The sleeves are going up the arm and how tight they are to, which is movie accurate. They are stuck to his arms in the movie, but because the silicone is so sticky, getting the sleeve up there, I can't say it enough, a major pain. And I don't think it's necessary to have the silicone arms on this figure. Once again, on this jacket here, while futzing it, trying to get it on, I lost one of the tassels. I didn't lose the whole zip, just the tassel came off for the zip. So I'm going to have to glue that back on. Like I said, not necessary to put the silicone arms in this figure. If they were plastic, like the DX13, those sleeves would just slip straight up over, and it would have taken me minutes to get the jacket on. Really difficult to get the jacket on and off with those sticky silicone arms. Not impressed whatsoever. But I did want to kind of point that out, and I want to showcase how he looks with the severed arm on and the alternate look for him, basically. And what I have here real quick, we will go through a comparison a bit later on. We just having a quick look here, we have the DX13. Like I said, we'll go through a proper comparison a bit later on, so stay tuned for that. But the sleeves, the jacket changing the jacket on the DX13 is a pleasure compared to the DX46. So here we have the head sculpt number 1, the minimum damage head sculpt, like I said, from the exit of the Cyberdyne Systems building, and I must say this is absolutely fantastic, and in a lot of ways is a huge upgrade to the DX13. The head isn't too wide like it was one of the complaints about the DX13, and looking at this now, I'd be inclined to agree. The detail is absolutely fantastic. Now, with all that said, the DX13 is still no slouch, but even the bullet holes up his necks. I mentioned in my previous Wolverine video about the texture and the neck on this figure, and I didn't have the figure in hand at the time, so I think I spoke out of turn. I don't think it's over textured when you have it in hand. It looks fine. The bullet holes, people were saying they look like blisters on his neck, and again, I'd be inclined to disagree. I think they look absolutely fine, although I think the collar, the t-shirt comes up a little bit too high. There's bullet holes underneath which don't make any sense, but looking at the battle damage on his face, the blood on it looks wet, it looks gory. You can see there's some bits of it trickling down at the sides, which looks on point. Looking at the side profile of him there, Arnold Schwarzenegger all day long in 1992, looks just like him. Absolutely fantastic expression for him as well, if you ask me. That blank stare, some wrinkle in the forehead, some creases in the forehead which look on point and really do look like him. Again, every single angle I look at him, it looks just like Arnold Schwarzenegger. The lips look on point to me. The shape of the nose is pretty much spot on. The hair is sculpted quite well. And one of the main points that are different to the DX13 is the lack of the seam where you take the back of the head off, which is a huge improvement. There's no seam on the back. And the hair is sculpted so well, like compared to the DX13, it is like leaps and bounds ahead. You can see the depth to the hair. If I can get the light to catch it properly, there's a nice little bit of depth to them. There's like, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, nobody touches Hot Toys with their sculpted hair. It really looks fantastic. The skin tone and the texture looks all on point as well. For the era for Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie, I'm really impressed with this sculpt. Over the moon with it. It's going to be a hard choice for some people to decide as to which head sculpt to use, to be honest. Thankfully, I have 2 of these ordered. I have another one on its way, so I'll be able to display both looks. And I have the DX13, so I have many options here, so I don't have to decide which head sculpts to use. So there we have it for this head sculpt here. So let's have a look at the severely battled head sculpt and look at the details on that. And here we have the severely battle damage head sculpt. Again, really well detailed. Looks just like it did in the movie. Is it the same sculpt? I thought for a minute there it was the same sculpt, but I don't think it is. I thought maybe it was just the same sculpt that had been slightly modified, but Now the bullet hole is slightly different on the left cheek, so I think it is a completely different sculpt, if that makes sense. Again, really well detailed. You can see the scratches on the side of his face, which are on the DX13, but they're not as well done. They're not as well done on the DX13. And they didn't look as, certainly didn't look as real. And again, looks just like him. Side profile looks absolutely spot on. The hair sculpt is incredible. It looks fantastic. And at the back, we have the battle damage at the back, as we should have, which he picks up while battling the T-1000 in the steel mill, which absolutely looks the part. Well detailed, nice bit of gore around the edges of the torn flesh. And moving around to this side here, that looks incredible. The definition, the detail, the texturing. The endoskeleton underneath really looks like it is an endoskeleton underneath. Looking at that there, the depth of the damage and how deep in there the endoskeleton is, and the wet blood effect looks absolutely incredible. The way it goes back into the hairline, it goes back just like it did in the movie, just as far as it did in the movie. You can really see that endoskeleton in there, and the separation of where the skin ends and the metal endoskeleton begins. You can see the depth of the cheekbone in the endoskeleton. Looks really well done. Again, the blood detail looks fantastic. Even the bars that control like the jaw are there and all look present and correct. And if I can get the head sculpt off without any hassle, there we go. You can see that LED. Can I flick that light on? I won't be able to get my finger in there. Nope. I need something to flick this light on. Let me be so crude as to use this gun. There we go. And pop the head sculpt back on. And there we have the LED light, and that is quite powerful. It's a nice bit of power to that. That is well lit up. I didn't expect that to be so strong. I wouldn't imagine those batteries are going to last very long now, but you know, it's a shame that it's battery operated and not USB. It's not something that you can just leave on all the time, which is a nuisance. You have to take them out of the cabinet, take its head off to switch it on, just like the DX13. And as I said, those button cell batteries don't last very long, so I am going to pop it off and turn it off real quick, because I do want to save the battery for... Can I get it off? There we go. I want to save the battery for when I'm taking some photographs in there for a bit later on. So there we have it for the severely battle damaged endoskeleton head sculpt. Absolutely phenomenal. 10 out of 10 head sculpt here for me. So moving on, let's do some comparisons with the DX13 and just see those differences in the technology from then to now. So just putting the DX13 next to the DX46 2.0 on the left and DX13 on the right. One thing I will point out, I've replaced the belt on the DX13 because it fell apart, it deteriorated on me. There are quite a few differences. The biggest difference I found was putting the jacket on. Putting the jacket on the DX13 is an absolute treat. It's so easily done, an absolute pleasure. It slips just right over those plastic arms and has no problem whatsoever, where I had huge issues trying to get the jacket up over the sleeves of the arms of the silicone arms of the 2.0. But there are quite a few differences, as you can see there. First of all, what stands out really on screen is the amount of exposed flesh on the leg, and the colour of the t-shirts are very different, and obviously the head sculpts. But let's just kind of work it up, and we'll start from bottom and work our way up. And here you can see that, you know, this is the DX46 on the left and the DX13 on the right, and far more exposure on the battle damage on the DX46. As you can see there, it looks way more gory and way more exposed, and more of the upper part of the thigh area exposed. And then we have the severed arm, and A lot of blood on the 2.0 compared to the DX13. As you can see, they're far more silver looking. You can see that soft plastic that they've used, and slightly softer again on the newer one, but way more blood detail on the 2.0. And the same with the chest area as well, if that'll focus. The chest area it's a bigger damaged area for starters. You can see the bullet detail, the bullet hole details in it as well there, and more blood and gore. And you can see that the zips there on them are just glued on the jacket, where on the DX13 they're actually, you can see they come out from the jacket and they have a bit of a relief on them because they are actually integrated into the zip. So that's a very different detail, but you can see that there's far more chest exposed on the 2.0, and it's a bigger damaged area. As I said there with the zip, you can see that the zip actually does move about. It is actually a functioning, well, not functioning zip, but a real looking zip compared to just having the glued on piece on the newer one. And then we have the head sculpts, obviously, and there is a vast difference in the head sculpts, although, like I said, the DX13 is still no slouch, and the bullet holes on the neck there as well, and the skin tone is very, very different on both figures. The DX13 is a lot darker than the 2.0, and I'm not sure which would be more accurate, to be honest with you, because in the steel mill scene he looks darker because of the colour grading. And you can see that the blood protruding through the bullets there as well, or the bullet holes in the jacket, aren't present on the DX13. Well, they're all present on the 2.0. So there are the differences, but the DX13 still holds up. Just a side profile there of the two of them. I really think you can see there just straight off the bat that the sleeve is a lot baggier on the DX13. It's not quite tailored to them as well as it should be. But like I said, the DX13 is still no slouch. If you already have the DX13, I can see you not getting the 2.0. You can see the zip on the ends of the legs there are very different, open on the 2.0 and closed on the DX13. And I think open is more accurate, if my memory serves me correctly. But yeah, the DX13 is still, even today, by today's standard, is still a fantastic looking figure. And I would, I would understand why people wouldn't get the 2.0 if they already have the DX13. Just running through it again there, you can see, just put them side by side, how much more gore and upper part of the thigh area is exposed on the DX46 on the right hand side, and how much more real it looks. And then moving up, we will have a look at, now I have replaced the belt as I said previously. Again, the blood effect on the arm, on the severed arm, is way more, it's way more bloodied up on the DX46. But still, again, as I said, DX13, no slouch, still looks the part, still looks fantastic. And then the colour of the t-shirt obviously is very, very different. And the exposure on the chest as well is very, very different compared to the DX13, and looks way more real and way more detailed. But I keep saying it, and that's because I stand by it. The DX13 is still no slouch. And then we have obviously the head sculpts, and the one thing I'll say about the head sculpts is the eyes on the DX13 with that little more closed and squint look way better. I'll have to say that the DX13 eyes, in my opinion, look way better with that just squinted look on them. And here we have the DX46 not so damaged head sculpt on the left, and the DX13 one on the right. And although there are huge differences, and yes, the 2.0 does look way more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Way more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the DX13 still holds up. You can see the difference in the battle damage. They are very different. The DX13 just looks like it's lathered with red paint and blood effect, where it's more specifically put in areas on the 2.0 and just has that finer detail to it. The hair sculpt is far superior on the 2.0, as you can see there, and just the general look of Arnold Schwarzenegger is better on the newer one. But I keep saying it, but the TX13 in hand still looks absolutely incredible. And as I said, I can understand why some people who have the DX13 wouldn't even bother getting this one, because it still holds up. And here we have the really damaged head sculpts. DX46 2.0 on the left and DX13 on the right. And again, they still both look incredible. They both look fantastic. Finer details are better, and the overall look of Arnold Schwarzenegger is still better on the 2.0. And you can see there that, you know, some of the details are very, very different. The battle damaging locations and the design of the battle damage is far different compared to the DX13. And the blood is just lathered on again on the DX13, where it's more strategically put, and you can see those little lacerations on the side of his cheeks there are more realistic and more defined on the 2.0, and that bullet hole in his cheek is a little bit more realistic looking as well, with a little bit of kind of misshape to it. It's not just perfectly round. And even the bullet hole in his neck as well, with the blood pouring out of it, looks far better. The skin tone on the DX13 to me looks closer to the scenes than the DX46. But here we have some comparisons with the weapons and the accessories from the DX13 to the new one. Here we have the two AR-15s. The DX13 and the DX46, exactly the same mold on the AR-15. Maybe the angle of the mag is slightly different. There's more of a curvature in the mag on the newer one. The newer one is at the bottom, by the way. The DX13 one is at the top. But there's more weathering on the DX13 one. You can see the weathering on the grip is more used looking. There's more weathering on the hand guard on the DX13. And even the sling on the DX13 looks weathered and used and worn compared to the 2.0, which looks brand new. Looks absolutely brand new. Looks never used. Very hard to tell on camera there. But the DX13 sling looks more realistic and more used. So I'd be inclined to say that in this case here, the DX13 AR-15 looks better. Looks far more real and looks better than the newer one, which is odd to say, strange to say. Then we have the M1911 style pistol, DX13 at the top, 2.0 on the bottom. The only difference really is the DX13 has a slightly glossier slide on it, and the screws for the grip are different colours. We have a brass kind of effect on the DX46 and silver on the DX13, not much difference. Now we have the grenade launcher, and this is a significant difference. The DX13 being at the top and the new one being at the bottom, and the new one being far superior. The wood grain effect on the 2.0 and the damage on the end of it looks so much better on the newer one. And what maybe wins for the DX13 is the sling. This sling on the DX13 looks worn and used, as opposed to the DX46 looking brand new and never used. But overall, the newer 2.0 looks far superior to the DX13. Then we have the hand sculpts, and we have the DX13 here on the left and the new DX on the right. And as far as I can tell, they are identical sculpts. All the hands are identical to the DX13, they're just reused. The only difference is the paint applications. You can see that the blood and gore on the new DX is far fuller, and there's more blood and gore than the DX13. Now, that doesn't mean that the DX13 ones aren't painted well. They are painted pretty well, and maybe the fact that you can see more flesh tones and more of the endoskeleton kind of coming through some people might argue that the X13 ones are better, which I could understand. You know, I kind of argue that it probably is a better look, but there's far more gore on the newer ones and is more movie accurate, so it's kind of a preference thing. But as far as I can tell, they are identical molds. As you can see there by the creases in the ends of the glove there, they're absolutely identical. They're in the same place, so I'm pretty sure they're just a reuse of the old DX13 hands. So there we have it for the Hot Toys Battle Damage T-800 2.0. If you made it this far, thanks very much for watching, and please don't hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel and spreads my videos and just gives the overall channel, you know, a helping hand in getting the views and growing the channel. So thanks for watching, and take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.